Greetings and welcome to the channel. This is Mikhailov from Team Retro, where we like retro games and the devices that bring them to us. So we have a controller for you today. This is the MOJHON Aether controller. This is a budget controller for PC and Nintendo Switch and all the systems that these third-party controllers typically work for, but this one actually has a screen display. And so this is going to make it easier for you to switch modes or program buttons or anything that you particularly want to do with a controller like this. In this video, we're going to do the usual tests. We'll do the Contra test, the Street Fighter test, we'll tour the device, we'll see how the buttons feel, we'll test it on different consoles, and we'll see if this controller is worth your hard-earned dollar bucks. So let's dive in and get to work. At time of recording, the MOJHON Aether is available for $29.99 on Amazon with a delivery date of April 24th to 28th for Amazon Prime members. The model I am using in this video is a gray controller sent to me by MOJHON for the purposes of this review. As is always required, all opinions are my own, I'm not being paid, and they are not seeing this video before it is published. And as a quick side note, I actually took on this controller review because MOJHON was originally a company called Big One, and I reviewed a controller way back in 2021 when I started my channel that was made by this exact same company. Now, I had purchased that controller with my own money, and it was what I used to actually put out my first video review. So I felt a little bit of nostalgia when MOJHON reached out to me and asked me to review this controller, just because it was with a controller made by this company that pretty much started my YouTube channel. But putting all that aside, let's take a look at the different features of the MOJHON Aether. This controller features Hall effect joysticks and triggers, programmable rear buttons, and turbo programming. The controller has a 1000 Hz polling rate as well as HD rumble. At the center of the device is an LCD display that will help you program the controller without the need for external software or button combinations. Giving the device life is a 600 mAh battery. The controller is compatible with iOS, Android, PC, and Nintendo Switch, utilizing either a Bluetooth connection or an included 2.4 GHz dongle. Once you unbox the controller, you'll be greeted with a rather large 2.4 GHz dongle, the controller itself, a card with a code to access online documentation, and nothing else. No charging cable, apparently. Alright, so let's go ahead and do our live device tour. So we're just going to go around this controller and test the buttons, test the triggers, test the D-pad, just get our initial feel for the device. So let's go ahead and start up here with the triggers. And bumpers are a little bit on the clicky side. Triggers seem to have a decent amount of travel. You have your typical bumper trigger mechanism here. Let's go ahead and do the sound test. They are a little on the louder side, but I don't imagine you using this controller in an environment where sound is going to be an issue, so I think the bumpers and triggers are just fine. They feel good, they have a nice texture to the top here. I do like the curvature. There is a recessed USB-C port up top, which can be problematic depending on what you are using. Taking a look at the front of the device, you have your home and power button, and then you have this display here, which gives you which type of input you are using, if you are using switch or X input, whether you're connected, and also what your battery level is. And if you press the FN button here, you can actually go into all of your configs. And the beauty of this screen is you could pretty much do everything here without having to actually go into your controller settings on any type of app. You don't need to have any kind of button combinations memorized. You could just kind of do anything and everything here. So you could change your modes from X input to switch. You can change out your dead zones. You can alter your controller mapping, including mapping to the M1 and M2 buttons in the back. So as you could see, I have my M1 mapped to L3 and I have my M2 mapped to R3. And then if you need to, you can even change the mapping of individual buttons. So that's a really nifty feature. If you're playing a game that doesn't require L3 or R3 and you want to map those to something else, you can absolutely do that. And the beauty of having this screen means you can do it without having to do button combinations or any of the other nonsense crazy things that you have to remember with some of the other controllers that are out there. And the fact that you can do this on a budget controller that only costs about $30, that's pretty game changing. I actually kind of wish that more companies would have these little screens here. I know FlyDigi does it with their Apex controllers, and those are much more expensive controllers. However, with this one, you have a budget controller that has a screen that can do pretty much anything you wanted to. And given how much this controller costs, having that little addition in there is actually really nice. Let's go ahead and take a look at the face buttons here. They are clicky. They have a lot of travel, it seems, but they're not bad. They are loud though. Let's go ahead and do that noise test. Yeah. But then let's also do the test of just regular use. Yeah, these are on the loud and clackety side here. Probably one of the worst attributes of this controller, but everything else is pretty solid. The joysticks feel good. They have good travel. This orange is a little bright and I guess colorful is the right word, but it's fine. The D-pad has an interesting design. It almost has this little shuriken design to it, which kind of goes along with the feudal look of this controller. That's also very, very clicky. It's also interesting that it hovers above the controller. It's a little bit on the floaty side. This is also quite noisy. Now, this did not bother me during the time that I was testing and playing on this controller, but I like to do these noise tests because it may bother you. So I just want to make sure that you have this information before picking up a controller like this. Don't have much going on the bottom. There's no headphone jack here. Let's just take a quick look at these textured grips on the back, and this feels good. I actually like the bumpiness of this controller. I like the color of this controller, except really the orange. That's the only part I don't like. But other than that, the white and gray have a nice look to them. I'm starting to get kind of an aversion to black controllers just because I'm noticing that the darker a device is, the more your fingerprints show up on it. But this is a nice matte texture to it. There are definitely gritty grips to it that make this controller comfortable. And I'd have to say overall, for what you're paying, this is a pretty nice controller package. But now let's just go ahead and start putting it through its paces and see how it works in real world usage. All right, so let's go ahead and test this controller out, and we're going to start with PC performance. So we're going to use the Lenovo Legion Go. and we're going to test out this obnoxiously big dongle that is definitely band approved. So in order to connect this to the Legion Go, we're going to use this little USB-C adapter, and I'm going to just plug it into the bottom here. And what we're going to see is on the dongle that the light is blinking white, which means it's ready to pair. You could see that it is connected, and it actually switches over to this ether icon. And then if you press the FN button, then you can see that it's on X input, it's connected to the dongle, and then we also have our battery on the dongle itself. You can see here that it has changed to orange, which means that it has paired. Now the odd thing here is that it shows up as the Black Shark Green Ghost gamepad. And I'm not sure what that means, but if you see that connected, then that means that the dongle is working and the controller is connected. Let's go ahead and just test our device inputs really quick. And you can see here that everything is working just fine. We have our analog triggers here. Now, if I go into the settings, and I go into configs and trigger, and if I turn on this hair trigger setting here, watch what happens. If I press it just down a little bit, now we have switched this over from an analog trigger to a digital trigger. Nothing actually changes on the mechanics of the trigger itself, but you just have to put less pressure on it to get it to recognize a full press. So if you're playing on, say, a Nintendo Switch, you can set this mode so that you just need to worry about having digital triggers and whether they're off and on, and it just takes a lot less pressure to get the full trigger response. So the interesting thing here doing the contra test is that the D-pad doesn't move at all. Usually most D-pads have a little bit of wiggle, and this just has none whatsoever. So there is no way to actually be able to trigger a false diagonal, and to be honest, it's also kind of hard to trigger a purposeful diagonal as well. You could see, like, I really have to put pressure on this controller, and even then you're going to see moments where the diagonal does not register at all. Now, the Street Fighter test is an interesting one for this one, at least as far as the D-pad goes, because as you can see, I'm actually struggling to kind of jump. I really have to push hard on this D-pad to get any sort of responsiveness. Now, I can do Hadoukens pretty well. I would say 80-ish% accuracy. And even then, I have to be very deliberate, and you could see I am still failing in parts. And it's just because of the fact that this D-pad is lifted and the fact that you really have to press down on it to get those intentional movements in. And so I can get Shoryukens off pretty well if I'm deliberate as to where I'm actually putting my fingers or my thumbs. And the same thing goes for tornado kicks. You have to be very deliberate. You have to push down very heavy on this controller. So I would not say that this is an ideal controller for fighting games at all if you're intent on using the D-pad. If you want to use the analog joystick, you might have some better luck because that'll be a little bit more deliberate. But if you want to use the D-pad for fighting games, I would not say this is the one. And let me just show you how to pair to the Switch. And this is very simple. Just hit the FN button, go into modes, change it to Switch, hit FN again, hit pair. It'll say pairing complete, and it'll automatically show up. So let me just show you how to get the turbo function. Again, hit FN for settings, hit configs, go to turbo. In this case, I'm going to set it to the X button. You could see the X button is actually doing turbo fire. And so I could play Mega Man 2 with the Turbo Fire on and just kind of let it do its thing. And I can cheese my way through Mega Man 2 this way if I so choose. If I decide I want to change back, it's just as simple as going back into configs, turbo, and toggling off the X. So this screen to me really is a game changer if you're looking for a fully featured controller. Now, of course, this is not a perfect controller, but for the price you're paying, this is a fairly decent offering, and you never realize that you need a built-in menu screen until you have a built-in menu screen. So one more thing I want to test is wake from sleep. So let's go ahead and put the device into sleep mode. Shuts off the controller. Let's turn the controller back on and see what happens. And nothing. Unfortunately, we do not have wake from sleep here, but if you do turn on your Switch, it will automatically connect the controller. So not a great option for docked mode. If you want to keep the Switch docked and use the controller to wake it, you're not going to be able to do it with the Aether controller. Now let's wrap things up with my final thoughts. And let's start with the positives. This controller has a lot of great features for $30. You have Hall effect sticks and triggers, back buttons, and features that come standard on much more expensive controllers. All that is packaged into a controller that looks good and feels great, especially for longer gaming sessions. The LCD screen is honestly game-changing. This controller has become a great pick-up and play controller for me for this exact reason. I don't have to memorize any crazy button combos in order for the controller to do what I need it to do. I just press a button, follow the prompts on screen, and I'm good to go. This controller sadly isn't perfect though, and comes with quite a few compromises that make me understand this cheaper $30 price point. The buttons are clacky and loud, and will bother those who are bothered by loud, clacky buttons. The D-pad is very hard to use. It's serviceable, gets the job done, but I would never use this controller when playing fighting games or precision platformers. These diagonals are just way too hard to hit. And finally, there is no wake function for the Nintendo Switch, limiting your ability to fully use the controller if you are keeping your Switch docked. Overall though, for $30, this controller impressed me not for what it does wrong, but for everything it does right at this price point. If you're looking for an extra controller, or just need something to travel with, or play some light RPGs, or do some light gaming like Balatro on, this controller is a very solid contender. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And please feel free to continue the conversation on the Retro Handhelds Discord, where you could find me hanging out in between videos. And if you want to support the channel like these wonderful people on the screen, you could do so by going to my Patreon page. Links for all these places are in the description. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe if this video was helpful to you in any way. Every smash of that button helps the channel grow and allows me to get more content out to you. But until next time, bye for now, and don't stop believing.